Oh man, it's gonna be such a long season. Oh, are we recording? Welcome back to Bite-Size Sports. This is the first episode of Bite-Size Colts. I am Kev. I will be getting you through your 2023 Indianapolis Colts season right here on Bite-Size Sports. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, listen, it won't all be doom and gloom coming from me, so have no fear. All right, but we are going to take a realistic approach to the Colts season and our coverage of it. Um, it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows either. And with that, let's just peel the band aid off right away. First thing to talk about, Jonathan Taylor's future with the Colts. Is there one? We won't rehash the lengthy offseason drama that I'm sure most of you are already aware of, but let's just say we don't currently, on the eve of week one, have really any timeline for Jonathan Taylor's return. The Colts just made Twitter angry by signing their long snapper to I believe, a new league high for long snapping contracts. So of course that has got some people in an uproar. I doubt the two contracts are comparable though, huh? Can we all acknowledge that lineman probably wasn't asking for 15 million? But anyway, there's been a lot of, Jim Irsay will free Willie, but he won't pay Jonathan Taylor. I know that joke's out there because I made it. It's not true. At least I'm one of the people that made that joke. It's not a true narrative though. All right, here's the thing. I believe that the Colts will pay Jonathan Taylor if they know that he's healthy, if they know that he can go out there and be the back that he once was. The problem with that is Jonathan Taylor has reasonable frustration, believing that he was brought back earlier than he should have been. If you've followed my other podcast, Indy Intercept, which has become Horseshoe Pride, shout out to Horseshoe Pride. You can check us out on Fridays on YouTube at the Horseshoe Pride channel. You can also check us out on the Pro Sports Fan app, PSF. Check that out. If you have Apple, we do game day coverage. So I'll be live week one covering the Colts Jaguars game. We also do a midweek show. So I will do what I can to get some Horseshoe Pride folks on this program. But back to what we were talking about with Jonathan Taylor on that very Horseshoe Pride program. I talked about how the Colts had brought Jonathan Taylor back too soon. I was very concerned at the fact that they brought him back last season in a season that was kind of already a mess. And being a huge NBA fan that I am, I have seen many great careers either go up in smoke or fizzle out due to lingering ankle injuries. And of course, you see that in the NFL as well. But I just was incredibly concerned about the Colts bringing Jonathan Taylor back, and they did, may have re-aggravated the injury. So we're at a bit of a stalemate here. I don't think the agent has helped very much. I also don't think the running backs across the league have helped very much. People have talked about that. There was a running back meeting, and it seems that since then, Jonathan Taylor went from "I want to be a Colt for life" to "Hey, screw you, pay me." Listen, we're not anti cuss words here. It's just your first episode, all right? So let me give you a warning. All right, there we go. We're outside of YouTube's 3 minutes. He said fuck you, pay me. Okay, welcome to Bite Size Sports. Glad to have you here. JT's future. Listen, I am afraid that this could become a Le'Veon Bell situation. However, Le'Veon Bell himself has come out and said that was the wrong decision, and he wishes he hadn't made it. So one can hope that JT will also avoid that. I still think somehow, some way, the Colts and Jonathan Taylor are going to come to an agreement, and he'll play for the Colts at some point. The trade offers were the equivalent to, hey, what do you want for that? I'll give me $1 million. It's like a lot of people have asked me in the past to purchase that little collage that I made back in the day. And I won't sell it because I made it a long time ago. It was the first one I ever made. It just has a personal It means something to me. All right. So, if someone ever came to me and said, "Well, no, I listen, I have to have it. What's the price?" That Dolphins trade was the equivalent of me saying, "Oh yeah, you can have it for $1 million," because I'm not interested in selling it. But if you force me to give you a price, I'm going to give you one that I know is ridiculous, that I know you'll never meet. And to me, that was the Dolphins trade talks. That was, oh sure, you want JT? Yeah, Jalen Waddle will be fine. Maybe some first round picks too. How's that sound? That to me was what the Colts were doing in those trade talks. So I don't know how it comes to it. I don't know how they get back to the table. I don't really see the Colts doing this without having some proof that JT is back to being his old self and is able to play. So we're at a bit of a stalemate here. Hopefully JT gets some new advice, gets some better advice, but at the end of the day I can't really blame him. Especially with running backs, your career isn't very long. So again, no ill will towards him. I don't know that he's gotten the best advice, and I genuinely hope that we'll see him play for the Colts again. But listen, this might be the most optimistic you'll see me be, because my first favorite Colt was Marshall Faulk. All right. I've seen Marshall Faulk, Edgerrin James, to a lesser extent, even Joseph Adai, when Irsay's like, yeah, Dominic Rhodes will be fine. This is not a team that historically makes this move to pay this running back. So, you know, I have a hard time, even though I said I think they'll re-sign. I don't even know if I believe that, guys. I'm going to just be really honest with you. His future is in doubt. So that takes us to who else? Who's it going to be? Deion Jackson, Zach Moss, Evan Hull. Now, when we look at the Colts depth chart, which we will be looking at here very soon, that's foreshadowing. It currently has Zach Moss at the top of the depth chart, and let me double check. I believe Deion Jackson is second, and Evan Hull is third. That is correct. So Zach Moss has been atop the depth chart here at running back, despite not really getting much time in the preseason. And he's been hurt recently, and everybody's been keeping an eye on that. Will he play? Won't he play? Is Deion Jackson going to be the move? I have seen a lot of fantasy managers taking one of these three backs late in rounds. I see more Deion Jackson, more Evan Hull. I think a lot of people weren't reaching on Moss. That's who I took when I had the opportunity as my Mr. Irrelevant to draft somebody that I thought might get some week one carries, maybe for the first few weeks. Who knows? So your daily stuff, keep an eye out for Zach Moss. We will talk about fantasy football stuff here in the program. It'll mainly be as it pertains to our Colts matchup. We're not going to do all of the league. Go check out Another Damn Fantasy podcast on Wednesday nights, or Rumbles of Red on Friday nights. Talk to Trevor, talk to Dan, tell them Kev sent you. But if you're looking for that stuff, go find it there. But we will definitely talk about DFS stuff. If you have some start sit 'em that involve Colts players or their opponent for that week, absolutely get those in. You can hit me up with those on Twitter at Kev Nevick, or on our Bite-Size Sports Twitter at Bite_Size Sports. But this week, as of right now, it looks like it's going to be Moss. Deion Jackson is a very hard runner. I don't know that he'll ever get a chance to be the every down back. He's a nice, I like him as a goal line back because he runs hard. I don't know if it was last year, maybe it was the year before, he won the Angry Touchdown Award that they do over on the NFL Network. He has some of the week or whatever. I don't know their segments, pal. Leave me alone. But he's a hard runner. I don't know that he's great catching the ball out of the backfield. I think Evan Hull has the biggest potential there. I could see if we go through the scenario where JT does not come back and it's these three for the rest of the year, I will not be surprised if it's Evan Hull's job by the back half of the season, if he's the lead back and Jackson and Moss are just kind of filling in. I also won't be surprised to see this team go with a committee approach for several weeks, which, in my opinion, can also kind of make things muddier and make it more difficult for you to figure out who your guy actually is. Look at what happened with the Lions. Oh, they got that win against the Chiefs, but you had Jahmyr Gibbs bust off an 18-yard run, and then they pull him out, and David Montgomery gets 8 yards and 3 carries, and then, you're done. Drive's over. So it's interesting. It's like that old saying, when you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. Sometimes I feel that way when you have a committee, if it's not a very role specific committee, going back to some old school thunder and lightning. Like if you have Tiki Barber and Ron Dane, all right, okay, that makes a little more sense. If you've got, James White and throwback, we'll just say it's from Andre Stevenson, but you got one of those Patriots situations where you had your pass, your absolute, this is our guy, he's catching balls, this is our goal line short yardage guy. I think those kinds of backfield committees can work a little better because players' roles are established. You don't have that doubt creeping in. You don't have that, oh, whether this run goes well or doesn't, am I getting pulled right away? So I I think that the committee approach sometimes can hurt teams, and I also think that's what the Colts are going to do. And I don't blame them for doing it. I think sometimes to counter my own argument, the only way to know for sure is to give everybody reps and to see what they can do at game speed. So in a way, you have to do it. But for week one, guys, I would be leaning towards Moss and Jackson if you absolutely need some fantasy plays here. But if you're just interested in see, who the Colts are going to be turning to, I think Moss is going to start, but as a fan, keep an eye out. And after the game, we'll check and see who got how many snaps. But I think it's going to be a pretty even split. But I do believe it's going to go Moss, Jackson, Hall. That's what the depth chart says. I believe that's going to be sort of the hierarchy with the touches, assuming that Moss plays. So we will confirm that in our week one preview coming right up after this. So let's switch things over then and pull out the rest of this depth chart because I have some thoughts. We're going to talk about our strong points and our weak points, and then we're pretty much going to get out of here with our week or our season predictions. I've laid out for you what I think the Colts are going to do, and we're also going to talk about our expectations for Mr. Anthony Richardson, but we will do that right now as we go in to our depth chart deep dive. Let's start with Anthony Richardson and his expectations. As you can see behind him on the depth chart, we have Uncle Rico, Gardner Minshew, and Yosemite Sam Ellinger, the rootinest, tootinest third string quarterback in all of the NFL. We do love us some Sam. But hey, Anthony Richardson, I disagree with Chris Ballard's whole take. While he was correct theoretically, did not having an elite running back hinder Andrew Luck's development. I mean, how dare you? How dare you say that? Just because there was a lot around Andrew Luck that was good. I think there were several Ring of Honor players already there. A couple of guys that are probably going to be Hall of Famers. So yeah, there wasn't a good running back situation, granted, but there were other things that were good. So I don't think it's a fair one-to-one comparison. And also, Andrew Luck had to retire early in no small part because of how much he got the shit beat out of him behind the offensive line that the Colts had. And maybe having a good running game and a quality running back, especially one who's near the tops in the league, could have done a lot to alleviate the onslaught of hits that our quarterback took back then. So yeah, I disagree. I think having an elite running back absolutely would help the growth of a young quarterback. And I don't even understand. Sometimes I think Chris Ballard says some things that essentially, he just kind of is trying to make situations smaller than they are. He's got this very, nonchalant. He says the right things, but they're often cliche. I've got a video that I never released of me reacting to last season's postseason press conference from Chris Ballard, and it was not fun. I just felt like he was making a lot of excuses, really wasn't saying a lot. And anyway, this was not supposed to be beef with Ballard, which is a great segment over on Horseshoe Pride. Again, please go subscribe to Horseshoe Pride. Tell them Kev sent you, and I'll be there. But AR's expectations for me, I'm hoping to see some flashes. I do not expect this guy to be the rookie of the year. I don't expect him to be terrible. Maybe early on, I do expect it to be kind of rough, but I think by the middle of the season, towards the back half, we will hopefully have seen some growth. We'll see some better reads. I'm sure we're going to see some amazing athletic plays, a couple of big runs. I do think he's going to have some dynamic plays with his feet. I'm sure he'll have some very bad interceptions, some bad decisions, misreading a coverage pre-snap and making his decision early, and just one of those where if you look at the replay, you'll be like, what in the hell was he seeing? But I do expect him to play pretty well, all things considered. And one of those things that we have to consider is the lack of depth at wide receiver. So why in the world the Colts only have 4 wide receivers is just beyond me. We've got, technically, I guess we've got 5 now. I see Amari Rogers here on the depth chart. So there's Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, then Isaiah McKenzie, and Amari Rogers. A couple of things here. Shocked, although Josh Downs was my favorite draft pick of all the Colts picks this year. No slight to anybody, not just maybe the player I was most excited about because it filled a need, and by all accounts, he's just been phenomenal. But I was shocked to see him overtake Alec Pierce in the depth chart because I felt that Josh Downs is tailor-made for being a slot receiver, whereas Alec Pierce is more of a deep ball 50-50 go up and get him kind of guy. So I just imagined that Pierce and Pittman on the outside with Downs work in the middle would be a great combination that, with some time for Downs and Pierce to grow and AR, that could be something that's pretty deadly. I know it'll be a lot of fun in Madden. It's got to be. But to see Downs take Pierce, I wonder, after seeing some of Pierce's drops in the preseason, I wonder how much of it has been just Downs catching everything and how much of it has Pierce struggled a little bit more. And we talk about guys we expect to see growth, expect to see next steps. Pierce is someone that coming into the season I've expected to take a big leap. I was very high on him last year. Thought that he was a little bit handcuffed at the fact that they didn't really have a quarterback that had the arm that really made Alec Pierce's game worthwhile. He's a go up and get him guy, like we said. And how many go up and get him balls was Matt Ryan able to throw last year and company? So I was very excited. Still, although cautiously, I'm so cautiously optimistic, I guess, and excited about AR to Pierce. But Josh Downs overtaking him in the depth chart, I think is something to keep an eye on. Are we going to see that from Alec Pierce? Because if not, the lack of depth at this position frightens me. I do like Isaiah McKenzie. Don't get me wrong. I've even, in a pinch on some deeper fantasy leagues, thrown him in at a wide receiver 3 or a flex spot at certain positions. But I'm just not thrilled about the wide receiver position. I was thrilled about the tight end position, which I no longer am. They've got as many tight ends as wide receivers on this roster, by the way. Mo Alley Cox, Drew Ogletree. Well, that's actually Mo Alley Cox, Kylan Granson, then Drew Ogletree, and Will Mallory, who is another rookie that we're excited about in Colts land. The Jelani Woods injury not only was incredibly disheartening, but it was just sort of, I think we all were shocked at how long it took for anyone to find out about it, because a lot of Colts creators and writers were visibly concerned at why do we have all these tight ends. I thought that was a position that we had locked down. Then we find out Jelani Woods is out. We were expecting a breakout year from him. He's 6'7". He's a goal line monster, at least has the potential to be a goal line monster. And now we'll be without him. And although I'm very excited about Will Mallory's future potential, to see him fourth in the depth chart leads me to believe we won't see much of him. Mo Alley Cox, not the not the biggest fan favorite over at the Horseshoe Pride podcast. I don't quite have the disdain as some of my co-hosts, but I am excited for Kylan Granson. I think he'll do a good job finding soft spots in the zones and just being a good safety valve for Richardson. But I don't think any of these tight ends currently are getting everybody excited, setting the world on fire. I certainly won't be adding any of them in fantasy as we look at that. And let's talk about the elephant in the room, the Colts' weakest position group last year by far, the offensive line. Now, a lot of these names look familiar, which should scare a lot of us because we watched the games last year. But it's not all gloom and doom again, all right? We still have Quentin Nelson. There's Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith at right tackle. Bernard Raymond, he's not Matt Pryor, okay? The problem with last year's offensive line was that the left tackle and the right guard were so bad that you've got Quentin Nelson looking like a broken bobblehead who's just swiveling horizontally instead of, the usual job. He's got his head on a literal swivel trying to figure out where is the dam going to collapse from first. Is it going to be over here on my right? Is it going to be over here on my left? Meanwhile, he's so busy looking back and forth that they actually shoot right through his gap. And we've seen some of those where it makes Quentin Nelson look like a buffoon in those moments where you're like, dude, what are you looking at, man? But then you go and you watch the all 22 or you catch the tape from the different angle and you're noticing he's so concerned with everything else that's going on this line that he doesn't get his assignment in time. And so the hope is that if Bernard Raymond can be a little better than Pryor, then maybe it'll only be the right guard situation that we have to worry about. And in that case, maybe they're able to help cover that a little bit. But this is another situation in which you'd like to be able to hand it off to one of the best running backs in the league because, getting defenses prepared to face the run constantly will also help your linemen in passing situations because people can't just tee off and say, oh, we don't really care about the run. So here we come. We're coming for you. Get ready, Bernard. Get ready, Will Fries. Who else we got? Blake Freeland. I think that's the other one. Of course, people keep an eye on Wesley French because they love the memes. So if Wesley French and Will Fries line up next to each other, the world loves that when that happens. But Blake Freeland was another rookie people are excited about. I also am. I wonder if we'll see him plugged into any of these spots. Would we see maybe Braden move to guard? So Freeland's going to play tackle there. Is it going to be Freeland that steps up and takes Will Fries' spot? Is Raymond safe? Let me know what you guys think about the O-line. It scares me to no end. I'm terrified of it. So let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. We'll talk about the defensive depth chart as we move down here. Let's do it. It's not great everywhere here, but let's start at the most exciting spot for me personally. That front four. You probably thought I was going to say linebacker, didn't you? Yeah. DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, they're the two best players on this defense, most impactful players on this defense for me personally. We will talk about some of the other anchors here at other positions, but it'll be interesting to see at the edge position, defensive end, we have Kwity Paye and Samson Ibukam, and then Tyquan Lewis, who came back on a very team-friendly deal, and I'll be interested to see what role he plays. I mean, I'm excited, cautiously optimistic to see what we'll get out of Tyquan Lewis, and then of course Deo. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that last name. I'm not. What is it? Odiingbo. Nice. Yeah, I am not the most scholarly of readers, All right. If you need a French name, I got you. But that's kind of it's like I got a cheat code there. So it's not really something to brag about. But no, I like this front four. I like Buckner and Stewart the most. Quiddy Pay. I I'm looking for a good season out of him, but I I feel pretty good about the front four. Now is when we start to get a little more nervous when we get to linebackers. Of course, we have Shaq Leonard, who we'll talk about in a minute. Zaire Franklin, who set a franchise record for tackles last year, I do believe. He was one of the league leaders. He led the league for a lot of the season in tackles. I don't believe he finished with the league lead. And then of course EJ Speed rounds out the starting unit, and then behind them we have Grant Stewart, Seguin Alubi, and Cameron McGrone. And this unit scares me because of Shaq's injury history. If he stays healthy and creates the turnovers that we're used to, this could all of a sudden become a very sneaky unit that I still think is going to give up a decent amount of yards, but turnovers are what matter. You can be a bend but don't break defense if you're opportunistic and you're creating turnovers. And at one point, the last time we saw a healthy Shaq Leonard, I believe he was still Darius back then. When he played that full season, he was a turnover magnet. So that player, in my opinion, is still there until we see him play a long time and we don't see him return. I don't think you can say, oh, well, because he's injured, he doesn't have that potential anymore. We just haven't had a chance to see him play any relevant stretch here for the last couple of years. So if he stays healthy, and that's a big if to me personally, he could go right back to being one of the best linebackers in the league. And if you pair that with Zaire Franklin, that's a great unit despite my perceived lack of depth here. I'm worried about the depth, especially with Shaq. But when I said it was a big if, it's weird things like the broken nose. Who expected that? He's had some very weird injuries that it's tough. It's tough to gauge with him. You want to see him play. You hope he'll be there for the full season. Oh, the defensive backfield. Okay. Let's start with what's decent. We've got the safeties, Rodney Thomas, Julian Blackman, and then Nick Cross and Trevor Denbo. Well, Nick Cross, will he start by the end of the season? Potentially. He's another player that I've heard a lot on the defensive side when we talk about who do we think is going to step up from last year and have a better season this year. I hear a lot of Nick Cross, so keep an eye out there. And corner. Woo! Daryl Baker Jr., Dallas Flowers, and Kenny Moore in the nickel, with the backups being Juju Brents, Jalen Jones, and Tony Brown. Dallas Flowers, more impactful in the return game, keep an eye out there, see if he makes any big plays in the return game. I am kind of surprised Juju Brents didn't win the job. He's a rookie, so I think it's probably a good thing that he didn't. I'm going to take it as good news. I'm going to take it as Daryl Baker Jr. played really well. That's how I'm going to choose to take it, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot more Juju Brents by the end of the season. So there we have that. Now it is time to get into our predictions here. Here we go, guys. I apologize in advance. Week 1, spoiler alert, we're going to do that whole episode next, but I don't have the Colts winning. How about week 2? I got them winning week 2. Texans, okay. Week 3, Baltimore. Week 4 against the Rams, I do have that as a win. Week 5 against the Titans. Ooh, that one's close, but I don't think they win. Week 6 against the Jags, no. 7 against the Browns, no. Also have them losing to the Saints, beating the Panthers the following week, losing to the Patriots. But hey, that next week is a bye, and I went ahead and checked that one as a win. I think that's going to feel like a win this year for us. Victory over the Buccaneers, of course. Now, look, you might like this one, folks. December, I have the Colts beating the Titans. Look out there. We'll get into it. But the Titans have a history of getting hurt and not being able to finish season strongly, and I could see this young Colts team starting to get better at what they do and playing spoiler to one of their division rivals. And I have them losing to the Bengals, losing to the Steelers, beating the Falcons. Gonna be a house divided at Meg Hall's house. The Raiders will ring in a better New Year than the Colts. I have the Colts losing to the Raiders, although that one might be a win for the Colts. It could turn. And then I have the final week of the season being a loss for the Colts because I believe the Colts and the Texans will be playing to see who gets the higher draft pick. So I think the Colts might let that one slide, huh? So that is it for our Bite-Size Colts season preview, folks. Thank you so much for joining me. Let me know how you feel in the comments about any and all of this, and I'll be happy to answer some questions that you might have for me in future episodes. Stay locked in for the Week 1 preview. We will talk about the matchups, fantasy implications, all that kind of stuff. So we'll see you soon, and we'll see you then. Peace.